Mine. And they're all real Marvel characters, but I created them.
What do Superman, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, She-Hulk, and Star Trek have in common? They're all comics that owe great debt to one man, John Byrne. Byrne is, simply put, the Jack Kirby of my generation, and one of the true masters of the Bronze Age of comics. Basically, if you read comics in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, you know his work. Byrne was the first artist I collected on name recognition alone, and I'm sure I'm not the only fan who did so. My name is Mike Avila. I write and talk about comics for a living. When people talk about dream jobs, I'm example A. I've been lucky enough to talk with Byrne at length about his career, his passions, and even his somewhat controversial reputation.
I went to DC, which was its whole own bee's nest, sticking my head into a wasp's nest.
The man rarely does interviews, but I guess we've hit it off because he agreed to sit down with me twice in the past year for exclusive, in-depth conversations that covered most of his incredible career. This time, we met at his very own Fortress of Solitude. Will the elusive John Byrne give me a glimpse into the artist behind the panel?
Get a little closer together.
You want us to cuddle right here?
Cuddle.
Sometimes I wrestle with my demons, sometimes we just cuddle.
I once saw a photo of Byrne in an old fanzine surrounded by his world-class collection, so I knew he had some cool stuff in his studio. But nothing could have prepared me for some of the priceless pieces he owns. John, what I think is especially interesting about you is that you're not just a comic book creator, but you're also a fan of the medium. And
big fan.
You can tell by your studio/museum here. Comic books are Byrne's profession and his passion. He's a devoted collector, and the walls of his sanctum sanctorum are lined with iconic original art pages from legends like Jack Kirby. Got a rare Jack Kirby Spider-Man drawing.
Yes, and of course that page is inked by Ditko.
Neil Adams.
If you have to have Batman pages by Neil Adams, you might as well have the origin story.
Whoa, check out that Superman by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. But no John Byrne pages. John, you're surrounded here by artistic examples of some of your contemporaries, but also a lot of your heroes.
All these people who are better than me, yes.
Give me 2 or 3 artists that really impacted the Byrne art style.
All right, there's a British editorial cartoonist of my youth named Giles, who was a huge influence. There are some British comic book artists, Frank Bellamy, Frank Hampson. And then we come over to this side of the pond and I start to see people like Dick Sprang and Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby. And then, of course, Neil Adams, who blew everybody away.
John Byrne, comic book giant and giant fan, but don't call him a fanboy.
I don't like the term fanboy because it was originally created as a pejorative.
No, I mean that in the best way possible, and I hold myself in that same regard.
It was originally used by fans to describe the fans who had gone off the deep end. They were fanboys, and that's still how I hear it.
Sometimes even the most iconic heroes lose their way and need a fresh start. In 1981, the Fantastic Four was in dire need of a new direction. In stepped John Byrne with a simple approach to get Marvel's first family back on track.
They have spats, they have fights.
But that doesn't make them dysfunctional.
That doesn't make them dysfunctional. That makes them a family.
Oh, look, Stan the Man. He remembered what Stan Lee and Jack Kirby first did that made the FF the world's greatest comic magazine back in the day. He gave each member new purpose.
Given that it was Marvel's flagship book, they sure did give me a free hand.
I sat down recently with the current writer of the FF, Dan Slott, and he admitted that Byrne was a huge influence.
John Byrne's FF to me that was my thing. I read the John Byrne team-ups because of Spidey. When I saw the guy doing team-up was doing FF, I was like, I am following him to FF.
It was during Byrne's run that Sue Richards graduated from the Invisible Girl to the Invisible Woman. For 5 years, Byrne wrote and illustrated some of the greatest stories in the history of the FF, including perhaps the greatest Galactus story ever. Oh yeah. Byrne also reminded us why Dr. Doom is Marvel's best and most self-absorbed villain with a single page in FF 258. Doom needs no one. How classic. Byrne's time on the FF also featured a major change to the roster. The She-Hulk replaced The Thing in 1984, part of the fallout from the Secret Wars crossover. But Byrne has never made secret his fondness for Bruce Banner's more even-tempered cousin. Why did She-Hulk interest you as a book?
Well, she was a hot babe. And then when Mark Grunwald was talking to me about doing a new She-Hulk book, he said, find a way to make it different. And I took the subway home, and on the way I thought, she knows she's in a comic book.
Came to you just like that.
Yeah, and just to mess with the whole format thing, stepping across panel borders. I have a wacky sense of humor that I don't get to use too much in the regular work. But She-Hulk allowed me to have both.
You obviously love the character. You made her a part of the Fantastic Four during your run.
Well, it was Roger Stern who, when he put her in the Avengers, said she enjoys being She-Hulk. This isn't a great torment for her like it is for Bruce Banner. And I said, that's great. I'm going to steal her. I'm going to take her for the FF. So I did.
Byrne's reputation as the greatest Mr. Fix-It in comics was solidified in 1986 when DC Comics tasked him with rebooting Superman. Again, he took the back-to-basics approach that worked so well with the Fantastic Four. He depowered Superman, re-emphasized Clark Kent, eliminated some Silver Age goofiness, and made Lex Luthor a potent contemporary villain. Byrne's impact on the Man of Steel remains clear to this day. Just take it from the great Scott Snyder.
The way in which he was able to reinvent Superman and make him something that felt immediate and relevant and still classic and true to form was just hugely influential to me.
My Superman was built out of every single Superman I'd ever seen. So there was some George Reeves, there was some Christopher Reeve, there was some of the Fleischer animation, and then some of the ideas that had been festering in my brain for, how long was it? I was 6 when I saw my first Superman comic.
How can I even ask a question of a legend like John Byrne, whose legacy is...
Come on, quicker.
I know, I'm trying to think. The 3 John Byrne comics, single stories that you drop into a time capsule.
Oh boy. Well, Hero from the Fantastic Four, Batman Captain America, and I think OMAC. I'd like to see OMAC remembered,
Wow.
because I think it's some of my best work.
You have had a direct impact on a whole generation of creators.
John Byrne, oh my God, you inspired us. You were the leader.
You look at every project I was pitching or doing. It's She-Hulk,
She-Hulk.
Great Lake Avengers, a Spider-Man team-up book. Yeah, everything it was Byrne.
Isn't it nice to see that?
Every once in a while you hear people say how good I am, and I don't believe a word of it. But all I see when I look at my work is what's wrong with it.
We've covered a lot of ground with John already, and we haven't even touched on the Uncanny X-Men. Coming up in part 2, we'll explore that part of Byrne's career, along with Alpha Flight, Perfection, his early days in comics, and we'll discuss those big bad John Byrne stories.
But to this day, I don't care what he ever said about us. I don't care.
Don't forget to subscribe to the SYFY WIRE YouTube channel for updates on our new videos.